So speaking about the earnest money deposit, how much exactly is that? Because now, let's say we got the closing costs covered, but my down payment ended up being, let's say, $9,000 for that $10,000 that I had saved up. So how much should I realistically expect to pay for that?
Well, for the earnest money, it's typically 1 to 2% of the list price, but that money will apply towards any closing costs, or if we get closing costs from the seller, then it will go towards your down payment.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's not just a crapshoot.
Right.
Like,
I was
it
gonna
doesn't
say,
get
that's
dropped in the
what I was working
bucket.
out, okay.
You get it back.
You get it back at the end.
Exactly. It'll be taken off the balance of your down payment or your closing costs.
Fantastic.
So it's just a deposit that the escrow company is going to hold for you in good faith.
Okay. And so from there we go into inspections.
Inspection. So we go into what we call a due diligence phase.
Okay.
And so that's our period of time to do any inspections that we require, and that can be done by a licensed home inspector. You could have your Uncle Bob do it. You could do it yourself if you felt like you were capable of doing that. But during that period of time, we need to get all of our inspections done, and we need to get the appraisal done, and then any terms that need to be negotiated about the appraisal or the inspection also have to be done within that due diligence period of time. So what the home inspector is going to do is they're going to come in, they're a licensed professional, and they're going to give us a professional opinion on the condition of the property. So they're going to go through, they're going to check the structure, the foundation, the plumbing, the electrical, they're going to check the roof, the wiring, all the good stuff, and you're going to get about a 50-page report. And if that home inspector finds, let's say, an electrical issue or a plumbing issue, what they're going to do is they're going to recommend that we hire a licensed electrician or a licensed plumber to come in and further investigate.
Okay.
That specializes in that particular area where they see any issues with.
Exactly, because they're not going to like take your air conditioning apart or take your plumbing apart. They're going to take a look up in the attic, but they're not going to crawl through the duct system or anything like that.
So let's say we have the inspection and hopefully everything went good. The home is good in quality standards, up to code. So now we have that inspection. Where do we go from the inspection? Does that go kind of like into the final appraisal? Okay.
Exactly. So we try to get that inspection done as soon as possible, so that, let's say by chance there's an issue that causes you to want to cancel the contract, you just can't deal with it, then we can cancel the contract before you pay for your appraisal. Because the inspection and the appraisal are two things that a buyer has to pay for upfront, out of pocket. So you can pay by cash, check, or credit card for the inspection. The appraisal has to be done through your lender, and you're going to pay with it or pay for it with your credit card.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to run you about $400 to $600 depending on what type of loan you're going to get. And then also, just to touch on the inspection, inspections cost anywhere from $200 to $600 depending on the size of the property. On average, we see them come in at about $350.
Cool. So after that, is that when we get into closing? Can you explain what the closing is? I've always heard that term, but I'm not 100% familiar what it is.
Well, let's touch just a little bit more on the appraisal.
Okay.
So an appraisal is a professional opinion of value of the property, whereas the inspection is a professional opinion of condition. So what we do for our clients is whatever we use to price that property to come up with the offer price that you gave, we're going to take those same comparables, we're going to print them all out, we're also going to print copies of the contract, any counter offers and addendums, and we're going to put together a nice folder, and we're going to meet the appraiser at the home. Now, we don't want to be pushy with the appraiser, we don't want to step on his toes, but we just want to let him or her know that, hey, we are your agents, we are actively involved, and that us and the listing agent and you and the seller all agree on this specific price, and that we're here to get the deal closed. So we just want to make sure that they're looking at the same information that we were looking at when we determined a price, and that they have clear, concise copies of anything in the contract that they might need to be aware of. So that's another service that we offer to help make sure that the home appraises for the value that we think it is.
Gotcha. So we're just making sure that what we're going to pay is the actual worth, and that you have to have an appraiser come in to verify that. It's not just good enough to say this is worth $200,000. We're gonna pay it and go ahead and get this done.
It's a condition of your loan, so you cannot get the loan if it doesn't appraise for that value, or you'll have to pay any amount that it doesn't appraise for. However, if you're a cash buyer, you can buy whatever you want. There's no appraisal required. If you want to spend $1 million on a property that's worth $10, it's not our business.
Yeah, don't quite have $1 million cash yet, but that's nice to know for when I get to that point.
So as we move forward towards the closing process, once that appraisal condition is met, that's one of the main conditions that have to be met. Once we've done that and we've negotiated on repairs, then we're just waiting for unconditional loan approval. And so during that process, depending on how long this takes, you might have to update your pay stubs, you might have to update your bank statements. A lot of times I've seen lenders ask for letters about why you were at this address for this particular amount of time. Just little tiny things that they might need for their file in order to get you approved for the loan. Once we're closer to the closing table, something that's called a CD will be issued. It's a closing disclosure. And then you have three days by law to look that over before anybody can sign, or before you can sign. And so that's going to be a loan, basically like all your rates and fees and everything having to do with your loan program. It's going to show us in writing exactly what you're being charged. So you'll have time to look that over. In the meantime, Charmaine's going to be scheduling you to sign at the escrow office at the title company. And then when it comes time to sign, either her or I will be there at the closing table with you. You'll be signing a stack of documents that's about that thick. You won't even remember how to sign your name after you're done with it. And we're there just to check everything, make sure there was no mistakes, make sure all your fees are correct, and just to be there for you for support.
So this is, I mean, just like going through this and like the discussion we've had, I mean, this is quite a process. I mean, that's really what it boils down to is,
Yes.
you know, without your guys' help, I mean, there's like no way I could handle, I mean, all of this stuff. I mean, like the MLS listings that you guys provide, the fact that you're like willing to work in tandem with the buyer, really figure out my needs and what is like an absolute deal breaker, and then working with the other agent to kind of, you know, maybe help me negotiate with some closing costs, and then going through the inspection process together to appraisal, all the way through, you know, getting the actual closing and getting the CD ready. Like, that's just a huge process, and I feel like now I have a more firm understanding and appreciation for what realtors do. I mean, you guys are really helping this massive process.
The work really starts, there's a lot of work beforehand to get you to that point of actually being able to select a house. And then the work really begins throughout the transaction. You know, making sure that everything is done correctly, making sure that you're protected, making sure that everybody in the transaction is treated fairly and honestly. Just right up until you record, and once you record, that means the property is yours and you get the keys. But you know, consumers these days, we have access to so much just at our fingertips. You know, Redfin, Zillow, Realtor.com, all of these different applications. And what the consumer a lot of times doesn't realize is those types of applications, their main marketing focus is us realtors. They're trying to sell us leads. So on those types of sites, they're just not governed the same as the MLS, so there's nobody that's necessarily telling them, hey, you gotta take this down immediately, this house sold. So they might leave a property up that sold a year ago just to attract buyers and to generate buyer and seller leads for us realtors. So when we take you onto an MLS custom search, we're only showing you properties that are actually available on the market, they're not under contract, and if you wanted to buy one, you could. So that's something that I see clients get really disappointed. Sometimes, you know, I always have them use my MLS app, but a lot of times they'll still go on Zillow or Trulia, something like that, and they'll find a house that's under contract and they're so disappointed by it. And you know, that's why they're not necessarily looking out for the consumer. They want to market to realtors.
Yeah, and it's funny because like, just like with, until we had this conversation, I had almost imagined that like somebody, like a first time buyer can just go on Zillow and find a property and somehow buy it. Like without all this understanding of this lengthy, really in-depth, nitty gritty process that it takes to actually buy a home. I mean, like, they really don't kind of give you the impression that there's anything but the listing price to deal with. So it's really interesting to hear that they're actually marketing towards realtors and trying to get you guys on their listings, because I wouldn't even know where to begin, like, without all this.
And you could do it like that. You could go on Zillow, and then whoever gets that lead, purchase that lead, will reach out to you, and then you'd be matched up with somebody that you have no idea if they have your best interest in mind, or if you mesh with them. And that's another thing that's super important, is working with a real estate agent that you get along with, that you feel like hears you and understands you, and that you think you're going to be working well with. Because you know, I don't know about you, Charmaine, but from the buying process for my personal home, there's certain points that's stressful for anybody, no matter how much you know about real estate.
Exactly.
And no matter how much money you have, it's always stressful. So it's important that you're working with somebody that can help you through those stressful times.
Well, and also it's important that you work with someone who represents you, because you may call the listing agent on Zillow and they're representing the seller. So you want someone who's looking out for your best needs.
Exactly.
And you need to understand that as a buyer, you don't pay us. The seller pays our fees. So you don't pay for us to help you.
There's absolutely no reason that any buyer should not work with an agent.
Right.
Because like Charmaine just said, the seller pays us. So you as a buyer, there's no charge to you. Besides the transactional fee that we charge for, you know, storing documents. It's a fee that our broker charges to us. So,
but it's minimal. It's
very minimal.
So we've gone through everything kind of A to Z, and then so we sign this document, and then, or the CD, and I finally get my keys. since there's a loan on it, I mean, like, because I'm just thinking, like, the only thing that I can really kind of tie into this is like purchasing a vehicle.
Okay.
Does the bank maintain ownership of the title of the house until the loan is completely paid off? Is that kind of how it works, like with a car?
So they secure a deed of trust against the property,
Okay.
which secures their investment. So
Gotcha.
if you were to default, they would have to be paid first before anybody else gets paid.
Yeah.
But you are on the title of the property, you do own the property, you have rights to it. You have the ability to take out a second loan if you needed a HELOC loan or a home equity line of credit. So you have full rights to the property, but they do have a deed of trust secured against the property so that in case you defaulted, they would be able to get paid. And then that's another thing, unless you're putting 20% down, you're gonna have mortgage insurance. And what that is insurance that the bank takes out against you, they make you pay for it, to make sure that they get paid in case you default. So, and that's separate than homeowners insurance.
There is also loans too that you could look into. They call it lender paid MI if you want to go that route. That's
a
the loan
great
I
idea.
have, where the interest rate is a little bit higher, but you don't have the PMI or the mortgage insurance, and then you get a better tax write-off at the end of the year because you're paying a little bit higher
That's a
interest
great
rate.
point. Yeah, there's so many ways to do it, and it really just depends on each and every buyer.
There's so many loan programs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's another reason it's beneficial to have a realtor is because let's say you just go out there by yourself and you just choose any lender, they're going to be nice to you, but they might not necessarily have your absolute best interest in mind. Whereas Charmaine and I can help you pair up with a lender that is not only going to give you a good rate, but they're going to be honest, and if you're entitled to what we call a rate rebate based on your credit score, they're going to actually give you that money. We see this in new builds all the time. Charmaine and I have had several clients where we go into a new build and the lender's promising them a 3% incentive, and when we ask for a full fee worksheet, we realize that they're not getting anything. They're actually just giving that client their own rate rebate that they're entitled to for their own credit limit or their own credit score at the time. And a lot of times they talk them into using that rate rebate to buy their rate down to the rate that they already qualify for based on their credit score. So that's a prime example of, if you don't know these things, you need to have a realtor representing you that can help you determine if you're getting a fair loan program or not.
It's all about, it sounds, for me, like it's hugely about trust.
Exactly.
I've got to have trust that you have my best interest in mind, and I'd rather work with somebody I feel super comfortable with for sure.
Yeah, exactly. We're not perfect, but we absolutely treat our clients like family, and we always do our very, very best.
Cool. Is there anything else you think I should know about buying a house? I feel this is pretty comprehensive. My mind feels a little bit at ease though, knowing the steps in the process and having a more firm understanding of like what is requisite to actually get a house. I mean, it's nice to have this beautiful dream of mine of getting a house, but it's
Exactly.
a different thing to kind of figure out the process.
So I guess the one last tip that I could say is if you're thinking about buying a home, whether it's in 6 months or in a year, the time to talk to a real estate agent is still right now. Because even if your goal is from a year, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you with the lender. I'm going to give you a few choices as far as lenders go, and then whichever one you think would be the best fit for you, we're going to already get you we're going to get your credit ran with that lender and see where you stand, so that lender can map out a plan to get your credit score maximized during that period of time. So let's say your credit score is a 620 today, and we know that you're going to purchase in a year. Depending on what's on your credit score report is what we're going to map out the program to be, and we can actually help you get your credit score up significantly during that period of time, so that when the time to purchase comes, you get the best rate that is available to you.
Yeah. And the lender can also, let you know exactly how much you're going to need towards down payment, closing costs, so it kind of gives you a little bit of time to prepare to save up.
Exactly.
Awesome, cool. Well, thank you for sitting down with me and explaining this. I definitely feel at ease. And I know who I'll be choosing for my realtor when I'm ready to go. So
Absolutely. Again, it's Pam, your Nevada Family Realtor, and remember, we treat you like family.